Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. And some of you already are on Wednesday. So, Erica, you better guarantee us another good day, yeah? Just
Full
like you
day.
did yesterday. So thank you very much, everyone, for taking the time to be here today. Um, my name is Meenakshi Iyer, for those of you who've not met me before, and I'm the founder and principal of North Star Solutions and Services, which is an organizational agility and workplace effectiveness consultancy. I'm physically based in a suburb called Ashburn in the state of Virginia on the east coast of the US. So for me, it's right now 6 minutes after 8 in the evening on Tuesday, May 12th. So it is really weird for me and interesting for me to speak to someone who's already a day ahead of us. Thank you for taking the time, Erica, to be a part of this event and also for this session today on organizational agility. The theme for this webinar series, this is the first big event that I've been able to organize under the North Star banner. So I'm a fairly new solo entrepreneur. I bid adieu to corporate life 8 months ago after being in it for more than 20 years. And I'm what you would refer to as a T-shaped professional. I have experience in different industries, ranging from healthcare, health IT to IT and IT services, HR and training. I'm also a trained English as a second language instructor. And so for me, North Star is a way where is my vehicle, if you will, to bring all of this varied experience, both in India and in the US. And then really, when I look back, I've always worked in multicultural groups, multicultural teams, be it in India or in the US. And as part of my higher education, I also had the opportunity to do some consulting work in Greece, which really was opened my world to a very different set of experiences. And so where the whole purpose of this event was to create a platform for thought leadership in the space of organizational agility and that full inclusive perspective. And so I've been really fortunate that the folks that I've reached out to within my network, both folks that I've known for years, such as Srini, we go back a long way, to folks such as Erika and Hema that we just met a few weeks ago, or probably a few months ago. So it's been my privilege to be able to connect with all of us and put this together. The focus of this webinar series is the fourth industrial revolution and the impact that it's already having on us, and what are some of the ways in which we can creatively navigate this in a meaningful way. Given our current pandemic situation, to me, this is a fantastic opportunity to really sort of stop and pause and think about how we want to proceed further. And is there really something such as a new normal? Do we want to go back to the normal? I think those are some questions that we really need to think about. Um, the themes, there are 5 broad themes ranging from workplace skills for the digital economy to digital transformation and robotic process automation, to agility, both organizational and personal agility, and overall, what are the workplace and leadership skills? And so we already have had folks such as Ann Steiner, David, who's with us on the call, Mindy, and Catherine, also on the call, that have talked to us about ideas such as collaborative leadership and workplace skills, and also the future of leadership. So those are some of the topics that we've already covered. And today's theme, somehow it worked out to be focus on the individual, focus on people. So we started the day, at least for us here in the US, we kicked off the day with Mindy talking to us about what are some of the things we need to think about if you are looking to reinvent your career or if you're looking to re-enter the workforce. And currently with the COVID-19 situation, a lot of us are at sort of crossroads in the professional world, in our careers. Some of us are facing job losses, some of us are facing other kinds of losses, and some of us are sort of forced to think about, do we really want to continue doing this, or is this an opportunity to pivot? And Catherine talked to us about what leadership looks like, and especially in the context of a multi-generational workforce, in the context of a digital economy, and she really talked to us from a very industry agnostic perspective. So given that, we are ready to kick off today with this session with Erika, who's going to continue on the theme of people being a critical success factor to organizational agility. And before I hand it off, just a couple of things. So one, how did Erika and I meet? We met over a virtual meetup in, I think, January or February, and we connected over LinkedIn. It was a Women in Agile, the San Francisco chapter. And the only reason why I was on it was because it was virtual. And the only reason why Erika was on it also because it was virtual. The chapter usually organizes physical events, but this was a kickoff, and the focus was virtual facilitation, and that's how we met. And then when I reached out to her about this event, she, to my good fortune, she gladly agreed, and here we are. So I'm going to stop sharing, and to you, Erika.
Cool. Thank you so much, Mineski. Now I'm going to try and share my screen. Those who know me know I'm not very good at technology. So please bear with me. I'll do my best. All right. Can you guys see that? Is it coming? Cool. All right.
Yes, yes, we can.
Woohoo. Okay, let's do the slideshow.
I mean, I can.
I've lost my little button that enables me to do, there it is. All right, how's that? Is that full screen?
Yes, it is.
All right, we're good to go. Okay, so thank you very much for joining me, everybody. Thanks, Minaski, for this opportunity. It's been really fun to be part of this event and part of this awesome team that you have collated to talk about Fourth Industrial Revolution and the future of work, which many would say is already here. In terms of what I want to talk about today, it's a little bit about why I'm talking to you, and then actually just to get into the real basics of organisational agility, starting with what's an organisation and what's agility. And if we put those two together, we get organisational agility. And at a basic level, it's actually not too much more difficult than that. What I'd like to look at as well is what an organisation, an agile organisation, looks like, and why agility is so important, not just to us as people or the teams that we work in, but to the organisations that we either work in or some of us run as well. And then we've got some time for Q&A. So hopefully that's what you've all signed up for, because here it comes. All right, a little bit about me. So my background is in traditional project and program management. I spent a number of years in New Zealand doing that, and also in the UK and Ireland. So my dad's from Germany, mum's from Ireland, had a UK passport, not a UK, actually European passport, and that enabled me to spend about 8 years overseas working on some really big organisations, some amazing projects and programs, and got some great experience in that transformation space. Came back to New Zealand after meeting a Kiwi bloke in a London bar. And one of the things that I started doing when I came back was actually being invited into organisations to do some project rescue. So these were organisations whose projects or programs were running late, running way over budget, and more importantly, weren't actually delivering any value to their customers. And it was when I was at one such organisation in Auckland, they'd spent $72 million over a period of 2 years and hadn't delivered anything. And we're going back to the board and asking for another $72 million and another couple of years. And so I was asking them, well, why? What have you learned? What are you going to do differently that's going to enable you to deliver something? And the poor people on that program, as you'd imagine, was so disillusioned and really frustrated. But the people who were leading it, or probably in this case more managing it, just said that they're just going to do more of what they'd been doing and just needed some more money to get it finished. So that really got me thinking as to there has got to be a better way of running projects and programs, because that's a huge amount of time and money and people's energy that they were putting into something and not actually delivering anything of value. So I took myself back to university. I was the first person in New Zealand, purely because of the reason I was in the first cohort, and my last name starts with B, to graduate with a Master of Advanced Leadership Practice. And I did my thesis on how leaders enable the successful delivery of agile projects. And I'd been starting to work in an agile way, and I realised that a lot of the work I had done previously was quite agile in terms of empowering people, trying to get as much input and collaboration as we could. Just didn't have that agile wrapper on it. And since then I've done a number of certifications, and not just to get the letters after my name, but that's a whole continuous learning thing. And the more I've learned about agile, the more I've learned that I don't know. And there's such a massive wealth of information and knowledge out there that I love learning more about it. And that's part of what I worked now in the organisation called Frank Innovation Transformation, is actually training and coaching people to learn more about Agile and helping organisations become more Agile. So that's a little bit about me and what I do. And I love it, as you can tell, super passionate, love helping people and teams be more productive and have more fun at work. Okay, so that's me rattling on about myself. What I'd like to do is hear a little bit from you. So if you can figure out where your chat is in Zoom, could you let me know just a few words about how you'd describe an organisation? Okay, so I'll just take a moment or so. If you could type some stuff into that chat box for me. And my lovely Manashki is going to be my wing woman here and actually let me know when people are writing in there. Just to get you started, just in case people are feeling a bit shy, I did ask some other people before, as I was prepping for this presentation, so what an organisation meant to them. And I had quite a few comments around things like it's people working in teams or functional areas. It's a group of people who have functions or departments, lots of words like that. So I'm just wondering what you might have said. Manashki, can you share some of the comments that might be coming through, if anyone's been brave enough to write some stuff?
Yep. So we have a group of people who come together to earn a living.
Yeah.
An entity with systems, people, and an intent.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. An organization means a community working towards a common goal.
Neat. Oh, you guys are fabulous.
A group of people who work together to achieve similar outcomes for similar customers.
Yeah.
Wow.
You guys have nailed it. You've nailed it.
Well, wait for this one that says a living, sleepwalking being.
Could feel like that sometimes, can't it? Oh, that's great. Thank you.
A formal or informal group of people that gather around a specific purpose.
Oh, brilliant. Because that's kind of, I was challenging myself to think about how would I describe an organisation. And it's one of those words that we hear all the time, we use a lot, but I actually struggled to put it on words. So you guys have done amazingly well. And then I actually went to the dictionary, Wikipedia, all those good places, and found this definition.
I have to add this one. What an organization is what the people make of it.
Oh, yes, it's all about the people. That is so true. That is so true. And here's a lovely definition that kind of sums up a lot of what you've said already. It's a group of people who have a shared purpose or interest. And it's not just for profit, it can be for other reasons that people are coming together as well. But you've really nailed it in terms of it's a group of people coming together, it's that community, and there's that shared purpose or a reason that they're coming together, either to serve customers or to do stuff that they want to do together with people that they enjoy and want to work with. So well done, you guys, that's great, because here's another one. And again, agile is a word that's bounced around a lot, particularly at the moment. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions around what it means to be agile, not just do agile. So could you take another couple of moments based on that fabulous response that we've just had, and could you again just pop in the chat, what does it mean to be agile? So don't worry about spelling or grammar, just a few bullet points would be cool, or even just a few words as to what it means to you to be agile. You can see a few things popping up there. So Mina, if you could let us know when we've got some feedback, that would be super.
Absolutely. So continuous improvement, to be responsive. And for me, I think it is about growth mindset and courage.
Yeah.
Then collaboration, small slices, test and learn continuously. To be
Nice.
flexible enough to adapt to the current conditions.
Sure. That's really key, isn't it? Oh, that's wonderful. Because again, when I went out and asked some people, just in case you guys didn't write anything, I had some comments too around, oh, isn't it like Scrum or sticky notes on a board and that sort of thing? And for some people, that's what Agile is. But if that's all it is, then they're really missing, I think, what is key to being Agile. And again, because you're all such fabulous people, you've really kind of summarised what being Agile is in terms of that flexibility, adaptability, willing to change, having a growth mindset, and all that great stuff. So when I talk about Agile, I talk about the importance of having an Agile mindset, because for me, that really is the key. You see lots of people and lots of organisations going straight to the other extreme, and lots of post-it notes going up on the wall, lots of people having stand-up meetings. This might sound familiar to some of you, and I think they've really missed the key to what it means to be Agile. So if we can start with that Agile mindset, and that's all about looking at what our customers really want and value from us, how we can change and pivot quickly to meet their needs and the changing needs of the environment, how we can collaborate and communicate and be better at doing all that sort of stuff. That's a fabulous foundation for building on. And then on top of that, you can layer the Agile values and principles. And it shouldn't be until an organisation has got that right that they actually start looking at the practices and processes and tools. Because if you miss those steps leading up to that, you really miss the value of what it means to be Agile and to be an Agile organisation. So a few of you might have seen this slide before if you've been at other presentations that I've done. Agile for me is a mindset. It's not a methodology, because if you're looking just at frameworks and approaches and the process, you're really missing the people side, and it is the people that are the most important. People over process all the time. So if we think about the Agile Manifesto, which is often considered to be the founding document of the Agile movement, there's 4 values in it. And these 4 values relate as much to organisations as they do to individuals or teams. So in the manifesto, it says Agile values individuals and interactions over process and tools. If we replace that with an Agile organisation values individuals and interactions over processes and tools, that really holds true as well. Again, it's that people over process. It's how we treat the people that we work with and the customers that we serve, and how we interact with them. And that is way more important than any processes or tools that we might pay for or implement. Because again, if you don't have the right people, it doesn't matter what process and tools you have, you're not going to be successful. And Agile organisations value working software, and anytime you see software, think products or services, over comprehensive documentation. And I think this is really true, because I think if organisations really focus on delivering something tangible, and ideally something of value, rather than just talking about or writing about what they're going to do, that's a lot more valuable for its customers and the people working in that organisation as well. So thinking now about an Agile organisation, how it values customer collaboration over contract negotiation. So this is not to say that those items in the grey boxes aren't important, because they absolutely are. You cannot run an organisation without having contracts and documentation and plans and all that sort of good stuff. It's just, as the manifesto says, the items on the right are less important than the items on the left. So it's the stuff that's in the orangey gold colour that really is the most important for us as individuals and for organisations who want to be Agile. And often the way now that we're writing contracts in organisations is changing. And you want to have more of that trust and partnership with your vendors, rather than just paying them for a service, sometimes overpaying them for a service. And you want to have that collaboration on them with your teams and have your teams to be learning from them as well. I think the bottom value, though, is the one that is probably most important and is the one that most defines whether an organisation is Agile or not. And that's the ability for an organisation to respond to change over following a plan. We all need plans. organisations have to have plans. If you don't have a plan, you plan to fail. But the way we're planning, the way organisations who want to be agile plan is different. So it's not locking yourselves into 10-year or 5-year or 2-year or even, as we see at the moment, 1-year annual plans. Yes, you absolutely need a plan and a vision, but you need to be able to respond to change and pivot based on what your customers are telling you that they want and what's happening in the environment. And we see that so much at the moment, especially as a result of COVID. Organisations who have been able to quickly pivot and adapt and change, and those that haven't. And I think we'll continue to see the fallout or the opportunities over the coming months of that as well around the world. So if we're still remaining with the Agile Manifesto, so again, really going back to basics, it talks about 12 principles. So I'm not going to go through them all, but if you think about these from an agile organisation point of view, as opposed to just teams and individuals. And so organisations who are agile or want to be agile should be focusing on things like customer satisfaction, should be welcoming and encouraging change as opposed to trying to manage it out, should be delivering frequently. So not those big bang waterfall deliveries at the end of months, sometimes years of work, where you're kind of crossing your fingers and really hoping that your customers still want to buy or use the service or product that you've been working on for so long. It's about incremental delivery and testing and learning from your customers all the time so that you really are putting the right people into the right roles and making the right things. Working together, motivated teams, all this stuff that we often talk about in terms of teams or individuals is equally relevant to organisations. And just another couple that I want to call out is that constant pace. If you as an organisation want to be agile, you need to look after your people. You cannot be running them into the ground. And Minaski, it really worried me yesterday when I heard you talk about how you used to be a corporate slave and you labelled that and you said you often worked 20 hours a week. 20 hours a week, you wish, 20 hours a day. I thought, that's just horrific. But so many organisations do that to their people, and particularly their good people. And if organisations do that, one, the first opportunity you have, you're going to leave because you don't need to work in an environment like that. And they're going to lose their good people and that knowledge and have to pay more to try and attract and retain and then train other people as well. But really what's more important than that is organisations who care for their people. And so when I think here about having your teams and individuals work at a constant pace, yes, it should be a little bit challenging, absolutely, and there are times when you might need to work overtime, but it's all about the health and mental well-being of people as well. And I think that's something that agile organisations tend to be a lot better at than some of the traditional organisations that some of us might have worked in. Just want to touch on two other things here, well, actually maybe three. One's around simplicity. It doesn't have to be difficult. Often we go to places, it sounds like a tricky problem, so we go to a really difficult solution. Sometimes simple is easy and the best thing to do. So when organisations are looking at moving towards a more agile way of working, start with the basics. Start small, start with the easy stuff and grow and learn from there. And another key characteristic of an agile organisation is the concept of self-organising teams. Now, these are not leaderless teams, and this is something that Anne spoke about when she was doing the keynote speech, I think just yesterday. Everybody still needs leaders, but it's less of that hands-on micromanagement because, to be fair, none of us really need that or like that. And it's about empowering people to make decisions within their remit, but still having leaders and that vision that we're working towards. And the other thing is that I see in agile organisations is where they take time to inspect and adapt. So to look at what has gone well for them and do more of that, and look at what's going well for other organisations outside of their own kind of sphere. And also looking at the stuff that hasn't worked so well and going, actually, why did that not work? What have we learned from that? How can we share those learnings and actually improve from there as well? So that continuous learning and continuous development, I think, is key to organisations truly being agile as well. Some organisations, like I talked before about jumping straight into process, want a framework, want a methodology, want an approach to help them scale agile. And when I talk here about scaled agile, essentially it's agile at scale. So you might have agile in a team. Scaled agile is potentially multiple teams working in an agile way. Some of these frameworks just look at Scrum and scaling Scrum, so having multiple Scrum teams work together, and those are things like Nexus, large-scale Scrum, Scrum of Scrums, that sort of thing. For me, that's not true organisational agility. That is scaling the benefits that you can get from working in an agile way. But when I think about organisational agility, I think of things too like lean portfolio management, lean governance, lean agile leadership, and all those other sorts of areas, not just teams working, particularly not just IT or technology teams working together in an agile way. And so there's some frameworks like DAD, the Disciplined Agile Delivery Approach, which I believe they've dropped their last D, not very inclusive, is it? So they're now just called Disciplined Agile. And what's particularly interesting with them is they've been bought out by PMI, the Project Management Institute. So I've been a member of PMI, oh my gosh, for well over a decade, used to serve on their board in New Zealand. They were a traditional project management organisation, but they have moved recently, which I think is great, shows their agility, into actually offering agile certifications, and now with sort of buying out Disciplined Agile, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in that space too. Just want to call out SAFE, the Scaled Agile Framework. This is what's used in most or the majority of organisations around the world, and it's something that the team that I'm working with at Frank are introducing in a number of organisations in New Zealand. It's not the be all and end all. Nothing is. Nothing's that cookie cutter easy approach. Everything should be tailored to your organisation and to the people in that organisation and to the level of maturity that the teams and the organisation itself has. So these are just frameworks, but like everything, it's the people that matter, and organisational agility requires a culture change, not just a process change. It's all too easy to introduce a new framework or a new process or talk about new ways of working, but unless there's a culture change to support that and lead people through that transition, because it can be pretty hard for some people, it's not going to be successful. And when I talk about culture, it's not this sort of culture. Okay, it's cool if you've got bean bags, if you've got football tables, if you've got ping pong, whatever it might be. It's great if your people want that. I actually worked for an organisation that put 2 table tennis tables in, and most of the people complained about the noise. So it's got to suit the needs of your people and your organisation. And yes, this is fun and that's great. But when we talk about culture change and the way it enables other change in organisations, what I'm talking about is change that's led from the front. It's leaders who are agile themselves and supporting agile ways of working. It's people who aren't afraid to fail when they try new things. It's having that growth mindset that Manashki mentioned before as well. And just sidebar, was helping my 9-year-old son with his homework the other night, and they're learning about growth mindset at school. How cool is that? I think if we can grow our own mindsets or change them as required to have a growth mindset and to be resilient, then we as individuals and the organisations we work for or work with are going to be much better for it. Okay, just want to talk about a couple of examples of agile organisations. 2 quite different organisations, 2 stories that really tickled my fancy of late. One's a distillery in Switzerland, and one's a sock company, as the name might give it away, in New Zealand. So 2 very old and well-established organisations. The Louis Morand distillery is probably most well known for its pear in the bottle brandy. My parents, being from Europe, had one of these in the liquor cabinet, and when I was growing up I was very intrigued by it, because as you can see, the pear itself is actually in the bottle. It's very clever. But what I particularly like about this story of late is that the people who were making this schnapps realised there wasn't a huge demand for it when people were in lockdown, but there was a huge demand for it, and their customers and their community actually really needed hand sanitizer. So what they did is they changed their production line from producing schnapps to sanitizer. And another great thing about this story, which I thought was quite cute, it wasn't a profit motive. It was actually to serve the community. And they were often selling this product, the new hand sanitizers, for less than it actually cost to make. So I thought that was quite a lovely story and a really good example of organisational agility. And another one kind of closer to home for me and for some of the others on the call is the New Zealand Sock Company. So they've been around for over a year making socks in a little town called Ashburton, which has about 35,000 people in the lower part of the South Island of New Zealand. They again saw the need to change based on what was happening in the environment around them and what their customers needed. And they've started making these merino masks. And again, it's an organisation that isn't selling them for a huge profit. Yes, they need to make money. They want to keep their people in work and have been fortunate and not have to lay anybody off. But they're selling 2 of these beautiful looking merino washable masks for $15, 15 Kiwi dollars, which I think is a great deal. And I think is going to make people want to continue to buy their product after COVID as well. And I'm sure you know of other scenarios and examples in your communities where organisations have been able to quickly change and pivot, and they'll remain successful, not just through this COVID crisis, but afterwards as well. There is always a flip side to organisations who aren't very agile, and this was a slide I wasn't sure if I was going to include, but I've decided to anyway. And it's a slide that I've used, actually I put together for a conference I spoke at last year. And there are examples of organisations who went very agile. Okay, lots of reasons, but if we just look at a couple of them, look at Kodak. Very, very different how people take pictures now and how they store photographs. Now, Kodak was actually the first organisation to create a digital camera, but they truly believed that people would continue to use cameras and take photographs with a specific piece of equipment as they always had, and they were really slow to change and missed a lot of that market share. And you look at Blockbuster Video. My mum, bless her, because she stayed with us for a bit during lockdown, she bought some videos and DVDs that the kids might like to watch. I said to her, Mum, we don't have a video player. We don't even have a DVD player anymore. The way that we consume, or that our kids and us as well are watching TV and movies has changed so quickly. It's really been phenomenal, that rate of change. And so Blockbuster's been another victim of that, not keeping up with the times. And apparently they had the opportunity to buy into Netflix in the early days. But right now, we really don't see that people are going to want to stream TV or movies. We think they're going to want to come into the store and rent something to watch later on. So some interesting examples there. All right, so just wrapping up in terms of what do I think an agile organisation looks like. And if you're looking for your organisations to be a bit more agile, here's some things you might want to think about too. So I believe that an agile organisation needs to have a clear vision. You've got to have a purpose, a reason why all these people are coming together in your organisation to actually do something, whether it be work producing widgets or services or not-for-profit services. There's got to be that uniting vision and purpose. And you absolutely have to have a plan, but it's got to be a flexible plan. And so I like the concept of planning by horizon. You might have a 5-year plan, that's awesome. You might have a 2-year plan or an annual plan, but we really have little control over whether we can deliver to that or not, because we've got no control over the environments, and particularly as we've seen with COVID, how that might affect us with no warning at all. But if you've got smaller horizons, say quarterly increments, you've got a little bit more control, for want of a better word, over that, because there's more certainty. So having a wider large-scale plan with shorter scale plans, I think is really beneficial. As you may have realised, I'm all about people over process, and I think organisations need to value their people more. We are not resources, and it really upsets me when people talk about human resources or human capital. Well, I'm not a human piece of capital. I'm not a resource, I'm a person. And the people I work with are people too, and the people that we're delivering our products or services to are people. So let's call us what we are, we're people. And people over process wins every time. Actually, Manaski and I were talking about, it's been really cool how this kind of team has all come together to deliver these webinars. I'm like, it's because we're all awesome people. We like the same things, we think about things in the same way. I'm saying absolute diversity is great, but if you can get people to buy in and be excited and inspired about what you do, then you're going to have a great organisation and people who really promote it from within, which is really powerful. as well as all that fun people stuff, you've got to have governance, absolutely, but I'm all about lean governance. Okay, governance that's layered down with tons of bureaucracy and documentation and paperwork doesn't benefit anyone other than the people who are probably doing all that paperwork, and they probably don't enjoy it either. You've got to have governance. There's got to be clear lines of accountability, because if you don't have an individual who is accountable, then you get the whole Teflon shoulders thing. Oh, it's not me, it's them. It's not, you know, him, it's her. It's someone else's problem. If you have defined accountability, that person knows that they're accountable for whatever it is they're accountable for. And I think they really buy into making that more of a success. On the technology side, or not, good data is really important as well. And it doesn't just have to be about technical data. It could be, for example, you're a bakery and for the last 2 weeks, you've been having new types of muffin on the menu, and your date muffins, yeah, they're still there every night, but your banana and chocolate chip muffins are sold out by afternoon tea time. Having information, whatever that might look like specific to your organisation, is really important, because you need good data to make good decisions, and you want to make good decisions fast. It's no good having a meeting to have a meeting to have a meeting to talk to a committee and have a steering board about thinking about making a decision. That's too late. An agile organisation makes decisions fast and acknowledges they might not have all the information, but leaving it to the last responsible moment, having as much info as they can at that time and making a good fast decision. This is often helped by having distributed teams, distributed decision making. Not everything has to go back up to the top. And also, if people don't make the right decision, just acknowledging that that's human, and as long as it's not a multi-million-dollar muck up in its front page of the paper, if they're small failures, if they're fast, if you get learnings from them, those learnings are shared, then that's a really positive thing. And I think that's key to agile organizations as well. And that feeds into that continuous learning. And learning's not just about, you know, capital T training. It's about attending things like webinars and meetups and seeing what's happening in other organizations, learning from mistakes that we've made, learning from mistakes that other people have made, building on those opportunities and all the good stuff that other people have done. So continuous learning, I think, is key, as is having agile teams. So these are teams made up of agile-minded people with an agile mindset, cross-functional, okay? They don't have to be co-located anymore, and we've really seen that, and that's something I actually used to really push for. I used to push for my teams to be co-located, because it's awesome when you can sit around a table and feed off each other and have those little conversations. But as we've seen, because none of us are working in co-located teams at the moment, you can do so much with technology. And that's what's fabulous about living in this digital age, is we don't need to, you know, all be in the same place. We can do a lot of our work from home, wherever you choose to be. It's just having that agile mindset is key. Okay, here's the last one. Here is my last question. And you don't this time have to write anything in the chat box, but I want you to think about what is most important in an agile organization. And I'd like to invite you now, if you've got your mobiles with you, just pick up your mobile. If you go into your camera setting, could you do that for me? Cool. If you turn it on and turn your camera around, smile into it, take a selfie, and then can you show me what you've got? Just hold it up. Oh, beautiful. What can we see there? Oh, fabulous. Actually, I'm going to stop sharing my screen just to see if I can see some more of you gorgeous people. All right. Can you guys see what's happening there? That's what's most important in an agile organization. Okay, it's not the processes, it's not the frameworks, it's us. We are what's most important. And if we can bring our agile selves to work and encourage other people to work in an agile way, then that's how our organizations are going to become more agile and be successful at what they want to do. I wanted to see if I can get back in and share my screen again. I just had one final quote, and it's from someone who you might not think is very agile, or certainly probably not known for agility. Oh, and I can't move it forward. Here I can. Charles Darwin. So he wrote this in the late 1800s. Okay, we weren't even thinking Agile then, but he wrote, it's not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent. It is the one that's most adaptable to change. And if you think of that from an organisational agility point of view, it really resounds, doesn't it? It's not the strongest or the smartest organisations that are going to survive, ideally thrive. It's the ones that can adjust quickly to changing situations and are adaptable to change. And this time of exponential change that we live in, I think that's probably more relevant than ever. And so I hope that we can all be agile, that we can survive and ideally thrive ourselves, and help and encourage and support the organisations that we work with and maybe work for to be agile as well. Because I think the world will be a better place if we can do that. Cool. Thank you very much, everybody. That's me. All right. Shall I stop sharing there?
Thank you so much, Erika.
Pleasure.
That was both inspirational and, you helped demystify a lot of those constructs around agility and organizational agility in particular, and brought the focus back on where it needs to be, which is people. Thank you very much for doing that. We have around half an hour left, and this is for questions, and we can all, you have the ability to unmute yourselves and we can have a conversation. That was the whole idea. And I would actually like to kick us off, Erika, and we were talking some about it before when we start before the start of the talk. Can you talk to us a little bit more about your experience in the public sector
Sure.
that you've had, and you were talking about that. So what are some of the interesting projects that you've been a part of, or initiatives, and what are some of the challenges that you've seen? Because there's not a lot of us that are, I think most of us are familiar with what happens in the government space, but I think a lot of us will be interested, it'll be of value to know something about something that happens in a different part of the world that we don't always get to learn about. Yeah, thank you.
So you're happy to talk about and I'm sure they'd be happy for me to talk about them as well, an organisation that we're working with at the moment in Wellington, which is where our government is, the good old beehive, and our PM Jacinda, who's all about being kind, which I think is a great message. Yes, at any time, but particularly at this kind of time. So Frank is doing some work with an organisation called ACC. It stands for Accident Compensation Commission. It's the only organisation of its type in the world, actually. So it means that if anyone in New Zealand, whether you're a Kiwi or a visitor, has an accident, your health recovery is paid for. So that's pretty amazing. We don't have I know in the States, used to joke about, slipping on a banana peel outside someone's office and suing them. You can't do them in New Zealand. So you can't sue people, you can't sue organisations. What we do as workers is we pay a levy to the ACC, which is a government-based organisation, and ACC takes that money. Essentially, it's like a big insurance scheme. You apply for support, and you can get support in terms of physio or doctor's appointments, whether it be operations, mental health, all sorts of different areas. So it's an amazing scheme, and it's like I say, the only one of its kind in the world. So there's a number of people, I think it's about 6,000 people who work for ACC within New Zealand, and they have, for us, a massive amount of money in terms of people paying levies in. And so the decision is always, well, what do we do with that money? How best can we spend that to benefit New Zealanders and people visiting New Zealand? It has been around for about 20 years. And so it's got quite big, fairly cumbersome, and like lots of government organisations and others as well, quite hierarchical and broken into functions. So when I think about that, it's really no different than any of the other big organisations that we've worked with that might be for profit. And it has the same challenges as any organisation, I think, whether they be big or small. And it's often that the senior leaders want to change, they know they need to change, often they don't know how. And often they've been doing the same thing for so long and they've been really successful. That's why they are executive or the C-level suite. They don't think they need to change. So if what we do is we tend to try and do a sandwich approach. So get hold of those really good, positive, those great leaders in those senior levels and explain to them the benefits of going agile or what you can achieve through an organisation that is genuinely serving its customers and coming together for the right reasons. And it's foregoing ego, it's working together as a team, it's breaking down functional silos. So working from that senior level, because as we all know, for change to stick, it's got to be leader-led, and they've really got to genuinely lead the way, but also coming up from that bottom as well. So having that groundswell of people who have the right mindset, those agile individuals forming up agile teams and growing it organically from there as well. So it's interesting when people say, oh, you're working in the government sector or not-for-profit or whatever it might be. All organisations tend to have the same challenges, and it's that you never have enough time, you never have enough money, there's always lots of things you want to be doing, and it's all about effective prioritisation. And so that's some of the things that we're working with ACC and other organisations is how do you make good decisions? And don't take, months doing it. And how can you devolve some of that decision making to the people who are working in the teams and are closest to the customer? So yeah, similar challenges. No organisation's a snowflake. They might think they're unique and special, and in many cases they are, but I've found that they all tend to share the same sorts of challenges.
Thank you for that, Erika. There's a question here. So Srini asks, is ACC similar to NHS in the UK, but focusing on accidents?
Not really. Oh, yes and no. I guess yes, in terms of you get free medical care. So in that regard, it's also for travellers and particularly for accidents. So if you fall off your bike, you get hit by a car, you're hang gliding, it doesn't take people's stupidity into it. You can do all sorts of dumb things, and it'll still be covered.
Okay, great. There's a question here from Hema. How did your team get the buy-in from the leaders to adopt a new mindset?
Oh, that's such a good question. And this, let's be honest, is really hard because you'll have some people who naturally have that agile or growth mindset and they're open to change. And you'll have a couple of people who'll be like, I don't need to change. I really don't see why I need to. And it's working on that why. What is the need to change? How is this going to benefit you? So the whole what's in it for them. How is it going to benefit your team? How is it going to benefit your organisation? How is it going to benefit your customers? And for me, what I like to do is actually highlight in a nice way what's not working now. So asking them about their pain points. What, sounds a bit cheesy. Some people like to be asked what keeps them up at night. Some people want to, be asked about what do they struggle with? What are their challenges? What would they like to change? And if you can get them to start having that conversation, you can often direct them to, well, have you perhaps thought about doing things this way? Yes, I know you've always done it like this and you've been hugely successful, well done. Have you thought perhaps about maybe looking at it differently or from your customer's point of view? So it's trying to, it's all about the why and the what's in it for them.
Thank you. There's another question from the sign-in name is Linka2. The question is, can you talk to us about some learnings from pitfalls, organizations that have attempted agile transformation and failed? What are the watch outs?
Yeah, okay, cool. Because there has been lots of failures or learnings, as I like to think about it, in this space. Often it's when an organisation will bring in a team of external consultants and it's the people within the organisation feel like it's done to them. And I think this is probably the biggest mistake that organisations do, because it's not a cookie cutter approach. And I've seen some of the big consultancies get on the agile bandwagon, not because they're passionate about agile and people, but because they see it as a money making thing. And they sweep it in with, oh my gosh, sometimes hundreds of people, and they do it to the people. And no one likes having stuff being done to you. You know, we want to be part of it. And for change to really stick, people need to be involved and brought in and right from the start. And this is something that I hear time and time again, saying, we don't want this to be done to us. So you don't have to do it to people, you can do it with people. And the approach that we like to take at Frank is actually to come in with a team of experts so you can talk about what good looks like, because often people don't know if they haven't seen it, but actually build the internal capability. We're not about, you know, getting bums on seats and having multi-year commitments and contracts with people. We want to get in there, share our learnings, build up that capability. And that's why, yes, we do training, but we're really big on coaching as well. Because you can't just send someone to a 2-day course and go, yay, now you're agile. It's actually having that support when they need to make decisions in real life, in their work environment, and go, oh, now actually usually I do this, but what are my other options? Or how should I behave in this way? And so I think that's a massive learning, is don't do it to your people. Involve your people. Get them to tell you their why, the whole Simon Sinek thing, what's in it for them, and really get them involved. And again, that leadership's important, but then have it bubbling up from the teams as well, because their excitement and enthusiasm will help it grow organically.
That was great. I did have a follow-up on that. So typically, for let's say a mid-sized organization, of course I know it depends on the size of the organization. What's the time frame that you're talking about of this kind of an engagement?
It does not happen overnight. And let's remember, it's a culture change. You can put a new process in, you can come in and go, here's Safe 101 or Scrum of Scrums or whatever it might be. You can do that really quickly. But again, it's all about that change. It's that reason why people want to change, and it's that culture change that often needs to happen to support that. So some organizations, think about Spotify. So young, vibey, lots of people coming together, do cool and groovy stuff. They kind of co-created their scaled agile model, and that's awesome. But you can't take that Spotify model and dump it somewhere else. And even the co-creators of Spotify said, hey, this works well for Spotify, but you're going to need something specific to you. So medium-sized organizations, or any size organizations, have to kind of figure out what works for them, what's most important for them. And it can be quick. You can see quick wins in agile teams, I believe. You can set up Kanban boards and Scrum teams really quickly and efficiently at very little cost. But if you truly want to be an agile organization and have agile budgeting and agile leadership and agile portfolio management and agile all the other good stuff, that definitely takes longer.
Thank you. There's a couple of comments. So that I saw one from Srini. Srini, do you want to talk about that? I missed it now. I saw it. Where did it go?
No, not really. I was just commenting that many of the large organizations, I think they adopt. I think they are late adopters, and I think many of them are late reluctant adopters, or they adapt. I mean, they don't adapt; they adopt without without really trying to understand what they're doing. They want to do it because others are doing. So there's this whole. Okay, what is this other company doing? So let's do that, or we're already successful. I don't think they look at the options on the table very dispassionately and see something that really help us. I don't think that's the approach for most companies.
Yeah, we have seen it.
That requires a very evolved and higher leadership maturity, I think. I mean, we are talking about all these things. But even if you think, I'm sorry, I speak from a software perspective. Yeah, this might bore people, right? Okay, let me say this. In many companies, if you want to do well, it is good to do reviews. It is simply good to do reviews. I mean, for example, Meenakshi, you and I, we do a lot of reviews, right? It's nothing to do with software code. And it's just good to do reviews, and people don't do reviews. And it's an old idea. And it's very hard. Yeah, management is not open to a lot of reviews. I don't know if there's a point in there somewhere.
No, this was something that I know that when David and I worked together and I was on his team, we struggled with it because we felt like we were the only two people who wanted to push the whole thing of, let's just stop and look at what we have done. Let's learn from that, right? So this whole concept of retrospective that is built as a Scrum ceremony. Again, even when it is done in organizations where that are a Scrum shop, it's done to something that you said, Erika, earlier on. It's done as a ceremony. Let's focus on the process as to why are we doing it? And so the struggle has always been that I think that most organizations, regardless of size, they're so focused on action. And so even if there is an outcome that was not expected or not desired, the next thing is to, okay, let's move on. So the idea is, okay, this didn't work, and there's not enough time spent. And again, see the words I'm using, right? We thought it as time spent as opposed to time invested. Because if we really pause to learn and look at what we've done, that's the true value of retrospective. And so we tend not to do that. And I think that the larger the organization, actually, let me take that. I don't think it's to do with the size of the organization. It's to do with the mindset of involved. And when you talk about leadership, it is about whether people that are in positions of power, whether they encourage it, and then people that are let's say the foot soldiers, do they feel empowered enough to make it a point or to bring that up? So there's this, they say, right, when leaders want everyone to be quiet, then they'll be surrounded by people that have nothing to say. And I think that we end up with a lot of that in organizations. Off my soapbox, back to you.
I think I just got something to add. I think it's totally right that it's not the size of the organization. I've seen even startups to small to all the way up to 50,000 people in the company. It's all about the mindset. I really thought when I left corporate and then I worked in a startup for a bit, I thought the startup world would be different, but it starts with the leaders and the people in there. As you said, it's all about the people, and it really, if they are not ready to adapt and actually relook or change their mindset, it's just going to be a vicious cycle, and it's just going to be all like a band-aid. I've seen so much band-aid going on. It's just not funny, the amount of money spent on band-aid, and then 3 years later you get someone else coming in to sort out the band-aid for you again. So it's very interesting. So until once somebody's ready, it's like how when someone's ready to be coached, it's the same like when someone's ready to take it to the next level for Agile or whatever thing you want to bring in that really works for you at that particular point in time. So that's my 2 cents.
And so people who are interested in learning more about personal agility should tune in this time tomorrow, because Kim is joining us from Melbourne talking about yes, just that. So personal agility. So that all ties in really well. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
It does tie in well, but I think that everything I've heard is absolutely spot on. It is a mindset at the center of it all. And I've had responsibility for companies of 200 million in annual revenues and companies of 30 million in annual revenues. And in my experience, the $30 million one, the more early stage one, was actually much more bound in process and culture than the larger, older one because of my. I think the other thing that I'm interested in just, Erika, maybe hearing a little bit about your experiences, there's 2 aspects. I think there's a center of every organization, whether it is a sales centered organization, an operationally centered organization, a software development centered organization. In my experience, if you can't find the appropriate balance of each of those things, you can end up in a real difficult spot. So you sell Agile as a sales-centered organization without really even understanding what Agile is. And you sell it in a way that the customer has an impression about it. And it really turns the organization on its backside, unfortunately. trying to adjust to that? I'm interested in your experiences there. And then secondly, I'm interested in your experiences in the company that hasn't broken down the silos and that is working from a software dev perspective in an Agile framework and working from an implementation or delivery perspective from a pure waterfall aspect. And how are they reconciling those two? So would love to hear some of your experiences there.
Yeah, sure. I might start with the latter one, because what we're finding in New Zealand, and it's probably similar around the world, is that Agile is often adopted in the IT shop, so in the IT arms of an organisation. And lots of people stop there. And we've seen that a lot in New Zealand that they might do scaled Agile, but really it's scaled within IT, digital technology, and doesn't move outside of that. And where those organisations have really big challenges then is you've got one part of the organisation working in an Agile way, but then you're hemmed in by that traditional waterfall flow of project delivery. And that's where a lot of frustration can come as well, because the people who are running in an Agile way want to do things quickly, want to release as fast as they can, want to get feedback from their customers, but you've got to go through that phase-gated approach, and it takes ages, and you can only deliver it, or go to production a certain number of times a year. What we've tried to do is to use that frustration from the people who are working point of view in the organisation, and also look at the customer frustrations in terms of if more parts of the organisation, or at least parts that are supporting those technology teams, go Agile as well, then there's a better flow through that system, and you don't jut up against those traditional hierarchies or governance forums or release mechanisms all the time. And so we try and use it as a bit of a story, going, hey, look how well these guys are delivering, but they're not actually getting stuff to their customer because of these other processes here. What can we do on those processes? And kind of look at it as a flow, and look at each of those big blockers individually and try and break them down one at a time. And that whole kind of systems thinking view helps things flow more smoothly and actually gets more people involved in that Agile way of thinking and working and delivering. Because if we can manage to tie those all in together, then it's, well, I think it's better for everyone. And then the first part of your question was around, was it functional silos again, or is it? Oh, David, you're on. Yep.
Sorry, functional silos and sort of how it impacts the customer relationship, or potentially.
Yes, well, lots of people I've found don't think too much about their customers. They just want to get their products out the door, or they've had a great idea and it looks really cool and funky, so they want to work on that. Or like Sri was saying before, someone else is doing it, so they feel they should as well. If we can really pull it back to involving our customer in some of those decisions that are being made into how best to kind of meet their needs, and I think that's really key. And a lot of people, like I say, think or talk about being customer centric, but really don't talk to their customers and make lots of assumptions on their behalf. And I find that's even worse when you've got those functional silos, because each of those functions has what they need to deliver, or what they think they need to deliver to meet KPIs and that sort of thing. They might have a certain view of the customer, which could be very different to the next functional silo. And again, what we like to encourage is just piloting something, doing something a little bit new and different, and pulling people from those functional silos into a cross-functional team, just as a bit of an experiment, just to see how it works, pulling in some customers, measuring, that feedback from our customers and talking about what success looks like before you start, and measuring it through, and actually trying to have a little pilot, a little test, a little experiment that we can share those learnings. And again, having a little, some people call it center of excellence, but I just think like have a little core unit of beautiful Agile people working together, and then take those learnings and try and encourage other people to do the same, and show how it doesn't have to be hierarchical or functional siloed, and that it really is better for everyone if we can leave, and this is the hard part, leaving egos at the door and trying to work genuinely as a team. And you mentioned it yesterday, David, in your session about the All Blacks, fabulous rugby team. Individually, they are all amazing players. They are hugely strong and powerful and quick and fast, and some of the best in the world at what they do. But when they combine as a team with that common purpose, that's when they really pull together and are even more awesome. Legendary, some might say. So it's really all about leaving self and ego and playing together as one team.
Thank you. That's great. There's two things that you talked about that I think are really important, resonate for me, because it's top of mind from last evening. But I think is this notion of managing two horizons, and horizons can be interpreted as being pretty long. But if you can truly break them into active pieces of work that resonate with the customer, then it becomes much easier to have that conversation. And the second piece, and why I always refer to the All Blacks, is that I think the leadership team all pulling together is absolutely critical. And I have found in my own experience where I've been successful in one organization and disappointingly less successful in another, is that if you don't have the executive leadership team on the same page, you are in a serious bunch of hurt.
You are, yeah. And it's tough to get them all on the same page because they've all got their objectives, they need to meet their KPIs, and often the way they're set, and that's why Agile HR is evolving as a new thing, because it's less about individual performance and more about team performance. And I think, again, the more organizations, when we're talking about Agile organizations, not just scaled Scrum or scaled Agile, is looking at how you recruit people, how you reward people, how you retain people. And often the traditional ways we've done that just don't work anymore. So they need a bit of an update and some evolution as well.
Or Srini refers to them resources. I just wanted to get his reaction. We've had several conversations about people versus resources. So
People.
We are coming up to time. I just wanted to say, I wanted to close this out. I know there are more questions. This is a fantastic conversation. I would request everyone, and would really love to continue this conversation. And one of the ways you can do that, of course, please connect with Erika on LinkedIn, and also we have our LinkedIn group for this event, and I'm going to post that link to that group in just a minute as soon as I can get hold of it. And I would invite all of you to please join the group. It's a moderated group right now, so please request to join, and I'll be able to have everyone on there, and we can keep these and other conversations going. This is one of the tangible takeaways of this event, this LinkedIn group, and so I would really, I'd invite all of you to join that. The other thing is, of course, Erika, thank you so much for this fantastic presentation. The conversation, very, very valuable, and I think that you have helped me, you and other speakers have really helped me bring that global perspective. And so I really am very, very appreciative of that. We have a similarly engaging lineup for tomorrow, and I just wanted to take a couple of minutes to call that out. We kick the day off with Divya. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so Divya is, among other things, she's an executive and leadership coach, and she is a visual storyboarding specialist, I guess you wouldn't call it. And I've attended her sessions, and that's how I met. She's one of those other people like Erika that I met on a webinar session through one of our other marketing partners, the Star and Me platform. And there she talked about how to apply design thinking principles to leadership. That's the talk I attended, and she's going to talk to us about leadership imperatives from again a visual perspective. So she's going to bring that whole visual storyboarding to present the concepts around navigating a VUCA world in a digital economy. And next, followed by that, we're going to have Shri Shri is again someone that I met through LinkedIn. You must think I'm a stalker. I actually met him he was the team lead where I volunteered on the Scrum Global Gathering Lisbon. I'm hoping will still happen in October of this year. I volunteered to review conference submissions, and he was my team lead. And our group worked on submissions under the individuals and interactions theme of the conference, the track of the conference. So Shri is an Agile coach, and again, he is extremely passionate about everything Agile, and we'll continue the theme from today on to tomorrow as well. And he's going to talk to us about I love the way he's titled this talk, Ubuntu, from human being to being human. So that's him at 11 a.m. tomorrow. And then same time tomorrow, we'll have Hema with us talking to us about personal agility. And she comes to us from Melbourne, Australia. Shri comes to us from London in the UK. So we have, again, 3 different time zones tomorrow: India, the UK, and Australia, meeting us at different times of the day. And so that's the plan for tomorrow. Once again, thank you very much, everyone, for being here today again, and have a great rest of the day. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, everybody. See you again tomorrow.
See you. Thanks, Erika. Bye.
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 Bye.